In certain cases, designers might lay out various design concepts of a part file, knowing that they'll eventually want to have an assembly that supports motion and lots of other flexibility. Some even make use of 2D sketch blocks in a part file, which lets you simulate how a mechanism will behave once you take it to 3D. Now, in cases where you wish to take a rigid 3D part file and break it into separate components to be used in an assembly, there is a way. The process we'll use is to separate the part file we have here into multiple bodies, one for each component, that will eventually go into the assembly. Once you have a multi-body part in SOLIDWORKS, you can easily create the individual part files for each body. Notice in the feature tree that this is a part file, and the part contains 2 solid bodies. But to make this a working assembly, we'll actually need 3 solid bodies. One for the piston, one for the connecting rod, and one for the crank. The piston is already its own body, but the crank and connecting rod exist as a single body. Because I want to focus on just this solid body right now, I'll right-click it and select Isolate. Using the Isolate tool will really help you when working with a more complex part than this one. Next, I'll go to Insert, Features, and launch the Split feature. In this case, I'm looking to separate the crank from the connecting rod, so I'll use the inside face of the crank and the outside face of the connecting rod, and click the Cut Part button. This will split it into 3 bodies, giving us 4 bodies total. I'll use the Auto Assign Names option and click the check. Now, I'll isolate the connecting rod. Now, it looks pretty good, but it's missing a through hole. I'll have to manually create it here. I'll start a sketch on this face and sketch a circle. Now, with the sketch fully defined, I can launch the Cut Extrude tool and use an Up to Next End condition. The Up to Next End condition makes sure I don't accidentally cut away material from any of the other bodies, which would happen if I used a Through All End condition. That completes the connecting rod. All that remains is repairing the crank, which right now exists in 2 solid bodies in the tree. I can't use Isolate here because I'm working with 2 bodies. So instead, I'll simply hide the bodies that I'm not working with. I'll create a new sketch on one of the inside faces and use Convert Entities to capture the geometry of the shaft here. This time, instead of a cut, I'll use an extruded boss. I'll use an Up to Next End condition and make sure the Merge Results checkbox is active, which will effectively combine these bodies into a single solid body. When I click the green check, the crank part is complete, and you can see in the Solid Bodies folder that there are now only 3 bodies, one for each part here. With each part existing as its own solid body, I can go to Insert, Features, Save Bodies. I'll use the flag in the graphics area to give these bodies the appropriate names. At the bottom of the Property Manager, there's a section labeled Create Assembly. I'll click the Browse button, browse to the location where I'd like to save the assembly, and enter a name. Now, I can click the green check. And now I can switch to the newly created assembly. You can see all 3 parts here with the names I've given them. Right now, they're all fixed. In order for them to move, I'll have to right-click them and select Float from the drop-down menu. Now I can go about adding mates. I can also create a motion study and use any of the other assembly tools that weren't available in the part environment.